The following episode recounts the details of a real homicide investigation. All information presented is taken from public court records, law enforcement files, and direct investigative experience. The names of victims and individuals involved are used with the utmost respect. No part of this story is intended to exploit or sensationalize their suffering. As a retired homicide investigator, I believe these stories matter, to honor the victims, to understand the truth, and to bring closure to the families left behind. Some content may be disturbing to listeners. Discretion is strongly advised. Greetings. The Church of Hope Fear. It was 35 years ago today, tragically. 35 years ago when she disappeared. It was 1990. On the 28th day of June, it was a Thursday. It had been a very hot and humid summer day and humid night in the murder capital of the nation, Camden County, New Jersey. The natives were restless. If you knew Camden City back in the 1990s, it was named the murder capital of the nation because of the high amount of homicides per capita. Homicide detectives were busy every single day. If they weren't working a new case, they were working a recent case. We were getting slammed. This case would make the Pope curse. The abduction, carjacking, kidnapping of a 22-year-old mother, Hope Stahl, had her 4-year-old son, Michael, taken from the Rosedale Bar and liquor store parking lot in Pennsauken, New Jersey, would send the police on the hunt for a violent killer and turn her family, friends, and neighbors into an organized search and rescue party. Hope lived a home that was in East Camden. There she was raising her 4-year-old son with her mother, Doris. She had 3 brothers, Roy, Timmy, and Joey. I got to know the family, unfortunately, through not so good terms. I happened to be the homicide detective that was on call that caught this brutal tragedy on that fateful night. The house was a typical row home on the east side, having a small front fenced-in yard and a small fenced-in backyard. On this particular day, well, actually night, Hope was asked to do her 2 brothers and their friend a favor, to give them a ride to the bar to take out some wine coolers. They had no idea that this request would turn into this nightmare. Their family's worst nightmare was about to hit home in the worst possible tragic way imaginable. At first, Hope was reluctant, but then she agreed. She gathered up her 4-year-old son, Michael, and off they went. It was late night. The bar closed at 2 a.m. As she pulled into the parking lot and dropped the trio off and waited in her car, her timing could not have been worse. I think it was just about before midnight, and there they were, the devil and his disciples, lurking in the dark. They'd be later identified as James Earl Jones and his 14-year-old partner in crime, Bela Lugosi, a pair of rapists and thieves. 2 Camden wannabe gangsters about to reach their full potentials. Out from the dark they approached. One tried to distract her, asking her for a light for his blunt. The other quickly put a gun to her head, ordered her at gunpoint to move over, carjacked her car, drove her and her baby to 36 and Cleveland Avenue to the parking lot of the Hope Baptist Church. As they tried to drive her car a little deeper into the woods, they got it stuck in mud up to the hubcaps. Now, stuck there, they ripped the screaming and terrified Hope out from her car and dragged her into the underbrush, leaving the 4-year-old child in the car. She's trying to resist them, by all accounts. She's trying to scream. Jones is holding her mouth. She's terrified. She's fighting the best she can. They drag her off there into the underbrush where they beat her, strip her of her clothing. They both take turns raping her. while her son is standing on the front seat of the car with his tiny hands pressed against the glass, watching, crying hysterically as his mother is fighting for her life. The church steeple is a large cross atop the church, as glaring in the moonlight, in plain view of where the assault is taking place. Unfortunately, on this night, it's standing as silent witness. It is no help to the situation at the moment, but perhaps it will be. We'll see. I couldn't help but realize that Hope could see the cross from where she was being assaulted. A very sad but true thought. Well, it was now Friday, the next day, the 29th. At approximately 5 a.m., the police received a phone call that her car was spotted stuck in the mud at that church, and that there was a nude body of a woman found lying in the weeds close by. I got the call as the first out homicide detective for the next case. I responded directly to the scene. I guess I was on the scene within an hour. Now, the car Hope and her son had been reported missing from the parking lot of the Rosedale Cafe late on Thursday night. The police are actually looking for the car and Hope and her 4-year-old son, but they really couldn't do much with respect to a missing person report until 24 hours had passed. I always thought, and still do today, that law was a bad law, especially when circumstances dictate that there's no logical reason for a person to be missing. Well, since they had the report of the body now, the prosecutor's office was notified. It's now a full-blown homicide investigation. As I'm there at the car, I noticed footprints in the mud near the car. I'm searching around now. It's still not completely light yet. I'm using the aid of my flashlight, and I see that there are some clothing strewn amongst the weeds. I do see the nude body of a young woman. Coffin flies had gathered in scant areas on the body. I could tell that she had been strangled. I checked her eyelids. Petechial hemorrhaging was present in the whites of the eyes. When I was radioed by the Camden police, the sun was coming up, at which time they informed me that they have a black male, identified as James Earl Jones, age 20. He reportedly was walking the streets of Camden and found this young child wandering alone. The police believe the child to be that of Hope Stahl. They also tell me in this same radio broadcast that there are warrants out for the arrest of James Earl Jones for sexual assaults and other related crimes. I tell them, don't read him his rights. Hold him at the police department detective bureau and have him wait there for me. Put him in a holding cell. I'll be up to talk with him. Well, I continue my investigation at the scene. I wrap things up and I head up to the detective bureau. There, I see Jones in a holding cell. I have one of the officers there take him into a interview room. There I advise him of his constitutional rights, which he waives in writing. I did that because he was in custody for the warrants. I intended to question him about the circumstances surrounding his finding the child, and of course I had some questions for him concerning this homicide. While I'm speaking to him, I noticed the front zipper area of his trousers. There seems to be a chalky white substance that had dried on the zipper area, which we refer to as pecker tracks. I don't know if my victim had been raped yet, but I'm not going to ignore pecker tracks on the person's zipper area that claims she found her child wandering the streets. I couldn't help but see the muddy boots that this hero, quote unquote, was wearing, who had just happened to find this 4-year-old child wandering the city streets alone. I asked him to recount the past 48 hours of his life entirety, meaning, tell me what you did starting out 2 days ago from the time you got out of bed. During this interview and interrogation, He tells me that he spent the last night with a female friend of his at her residence. Of course, I dispatched 2 Camden uniformed officers there to ask her specifically if she knew James Earl Jones and if he had spent the last night with her at her residence. Well, in short order, they report back to me that the female denies that Jones spent the night with her. As a matter of fact, she states that she hadn't seen him in a few weeks. So I advised him to ask her if she would accompany them to the detective bureau where I could interview her and obtain a formal tape recorder statement from her. She agrees. They bring her to the bureau where I did swear her in, put her under oath, and in fact lock her into her statement that hadn't seen Jones in a few weeks and no, he did not stay at her place last night. Well, now he's what we call in the business, quote unquote, a person of interest. Let's knock off the bullshit, folks. He is now number 1 on my hit parade. He is our suspect, and we're going for the jugular. After a long process of interview and interrogation ensues, he finally breaks. He was a tough nut to crack, let me tell you. Streetwise, city kid, he was no joke. He was a criminal in every sense of the imagination. But he confesses after a thorough HFG FBI, that's known as a Harry F. Gavel famous beef. I'll let you figure out what the I stands for. Well, it's a serious browbeating by me during interrogation. He tells me him and his homeboy, who he names as Lawrence Bela Lugosi, first saw Hope in the parking lot of the bar. She was sitting in her car. They thought that she was alone. They were looking to do another rape robbery scenario, that they had been on a crime scene spree all of the previous last week, where it was learned in this investigation that Jones had essentially kidnapped, raped, and robbed 5 other city residents. 3 were men and 2 were women. The 2 women he kidnapped and raped. The 3 men he basically kidnapped. One of those men happened to be a Catholic priest. The Catholic priest was tied up, his legs were duct taped, and he was robbed of $250 in cash, which was proceeds from the recent collection box of the church. So they both rape her again. They kill her by strangulation. To make sure she is dead, Jones checks her pulse, checks her for breathing, and he's able to confirm that she is in fact dead. Now, if you are a homicide detective, go as deep as you can. Get the details. It may be your only shot before they lawyer up. Once they lawyer up, you can bet the lawyer's going to tell them to dummy up. There's no more talking to them after that unless they want to make a plea deal. Are you ready for what happens next? And I hate to report this, folks. They then rape her dead corpse again. Now, I'm a hard-boiled homicide detective, but when I heard that, I couldn't help but to drop my head in disgust. That is memorialized in his tape recorder statement. In his confession, I wanted to make sure that I went through the details of that. I wanted the jury to hear that. I was hoping that that would put a period at the end of their deliberations when it came time to find him guilty. His partner happened to be the youngest juvenile at the time, at age 14, to be charged as an adult for murder. The heinous behavior of these criminals caused him to get waived up as an adult and sentenced as an adult. Both go to trial. Jones gets life plus 50 years. The juvenile gets life. And the defense attorney for the juvenile happens to be none other than my ex-partner when I first started in the prosecutor's office in 1984, prosecutor by the name of Jamie K., who had later became a defense attorney. He was the attorney for that juvenile, so I faced him at trial in the court. Well, we won both cases, I should say. Both defendants received heavy convictions, as I stated. The cross at the top of the Hope Baptist Church didn't save her that night. But as I mentioned in the beginning of this horrible story, that perhaps it did help. It helped us in the fact that when you're in homicide, you do work for God. And that cross could have very well helped us nail them both to the cross for their heinous crimes. Yeah, this was 35 years ago today, and it's a case that everyone would like to forget. You can't forget. Not if you're the family, not if you're the friends, not if you're the loved ones, or the homicide detective that happened to catch the call to respond to this tragic, horrific crime, to do a very important job. Seek out the wicked that were capable of performing such a heinous crime. The end. Next up, a case that will truly bug you to death. It bugged us beyond the grave.